Hey, this is Steve in Dallas, Texas. It's Saturday morning, my friend, and you are listening to Light Talk.
Well, good morning. This is Stan in Gainesville, Florida. And today on Light Talk, we're going to talk about brightness, white sets, IQs, and how you label your truss.
Tighter! Tighten that truss. And this is David in the beautiful Belmont Shore neighborhood of Long Beach, California. And if you don't already know, you are listening to Light Talk, and we are the Lumen Brothers.
Just the boys this week.
All right. Let's try to keep the testosterone level down.
Oh, mine's going down. Don't worry.
I forgot to take my supplement today, so I should be okay. Steve, how you doing? All right?
I'm just sitting here in my bathrobe, underwear, drinking a beer.
Enough. Too much information.
TMI.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 181. And first, before we get started, breaking news.
Break it, baby.
We're running out of the alphabet for hurricanes. We're moving into the Greek alphabet.
We're in the Greek. Well, we talked about that last week, the Greek alphabet. So we're going to have alpha?
We are two hurricanes away from going to the Greek alphabet. Yes, from alpha.
What's B in Greek? It's not Bravo.
Beta.
Beta, of course. Alpha, beta, and then what's C?
I don't know. Cat.
Okay. Anyway, breaking news. Just what we've been waiting for. We've been waiting for this for a year. The 2020 finalists for Hog Factor USA have been announced. Bum, 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 bum.
Put a drum roll in there.
Bum, 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 bum. Yeah.
Little fanfare for the common man.
Were you trying to? I thought you were trying to do the Wide World of Sports theme song there.
The thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. Well, the three Hog Factor USA finalist teams are the Ghostlights from Webster University, Bacon Powers from Southern Methodist University, and Hamburglers from Texas State University. Wow, there you go. So, yeah, Webster's been there before. SMU's been. Oh, congratulations, Steve. You happen to be the professor at SMU, right?
Yep.
On Thursdays.
Okay.
He does that on Thursdays.
And I want you to know right now that Texas State University or SMU, we're throwing down the
gauntlet.
We're going to bring home the gold to Texas.
Oh, God. I don't know. Webster's always a strong team.
That's a congratulations to my former student and wonderful colleague, Sarah Maines, who is the leading professor at Texas State, who just approved entry into IRTA. So congratulations to them on IRTA, and congratulations on Hog Factor.
So I assume this is Texas State University's first visit to Hog Factor, right?
They could have been in the preliminaries and we wouldn't know. It's possible.
I know that, but I mean the finals.
I think so.
They made the finals. SMU's been there for forever. One day they'll win. How many years have you been there? How many years have you been the bridesmaid and not the bride?
We have been the bridesmaid. This is fourth visit out of six seasons.
Oh, that's pretty damn good. There's only one school, I think, that has more visits than you do.
Our dreaded nemesis, Carnegie Mellon.
What happened to them this year? This is the first year that they didn't make it, right?
The COVID got them. This was a rough time. I mean, all of a sudden, students are trying to wrap up their spring seasons. They've gotten back from spring break. They're getting that last show done. They're getting portfolios ready. They're trying to get their last show up. They're doing Hog Factor. And all of a sudden, it's Armageddon.
Yeah.
It hit everybody hard.
Yeah. Well, congratulations, Steve. I think it's great that you guys are still there. So how are they doing it this year, Steve? Do you have any idea how they're doing the finals?
I don't know. We just got a note from High End saying that they would be letting everyone know next week on how the finals would be done. But I mean, clearly it's going to be... it's not hard to figure out this is going to be some kind of virtual webcast type event, probably through ETC's education wing. But they're going to let us know. And as soon as we know, we can let our listeners around the world know.
Well, that's great. That's great. It's going to be pretty exciting. So we'll all be watching and we'll all be waiting with anticipation. Okay, more news. Link, virtual 2020 event. And this is what USITT and SCTC's Link event, which is kind of a portfolio review. Is that correct, Steve? Because you know more about this than I do.
Yeah, it's they decided to do something that was based, I believe, in Atlanta. Generally, one of my colleagues, I've never been there, but my colleagues and Russell and Claudia have been there every year. So they fly into the airport there and they spend 1 or 2 days meeting students, and they've always have a good time. It's well organized.
Right. Let me read the press release. It says, link, virtual 2020 event where master's candidates and recruiters connect. SETC and USITT partner each fall to bring graduate theater degree programs together with people considering options for interviews, auditions, and information exchange. Students can connect with more than 50 programs across theater disciplines, including design, technology, management, and acting. Explore your options for advanced education and find your dream grad program in one convenient, affordable virtual location. This year's event will take place online December 2nd through 4th, 2020. Learn more and register today at usitt.org/link. Registration is now open until November 5th, 2020. Student registration is $75 and school registration is $325. That sounds like a good deal.
A bargain.
Yeah, a total bargain. So, and we assume that IRTA is going to be doing something similar this year. Any word on IRTA yet?
Something similar.
I just got a note saying, wanting to know if we'd be participating this year, and I'm about to send the paperwork back saying we are.
Fantastic. Okay, so that's it for news. So, Steve has our first question.
It comes from Bobby in Dallas, and she writes, how bright is too bright?
You guys gave me the answer years ago on that one.
Don't look at the sun.
No, you
That's
said
too
you
bright.
can always dim it down. Give me more light, more light, more light. I can always make it dimmer.
There needs to be a spot where you get into like the too bright moments. I have an answer too, but it's not scientific. I know, Stan, you have a scientific
Nah,
answer.
probably not. I don't know.
But let Steve answer it, then we'll jump in.
Well, I would say go outside at sunrise and sunset, and that's not too bright. And it's an interesting angle, and you see lots of detail and shadow, and things are sculpted, and everything is still visible. If you wait until noon, that's about too bright. If you look at your driver's license picture, that's too bright. You know, it gets too bright when everything becomes flattened out. And there's no detail, there's no dimensionality, there's no plasticity to the actors on stage anymore. Once that happens, you know you've pushed it too far. You know, it's relative. It's relative to what you and the director are wanting to achieve on stage.
My question, Steve, to you is that a factor of intensity or is that a factor of modeling? Because seeing details has a lot to do with the angle of light and not the actual intensity of the light. If you're like blasting somebody from the front and it's like at 500-foot candles, it's flattening them out, but is that reflected light coming off the actor, besides igniting him on fire, is that going to be too bright for the audience?
I think it's all angle, because you bring up a good point. Your par can at full from behind someone might be just perfect, but from the front, they're totally flattened out. So I think brightness is directly tied to angle.
Well, I got a couple things to say. Steve, you said something really key at the beginning of your answer about sunrise and sunset, and noon is maybe too bright, and because of the angle, that is, in photography terms, that's magic hour. That's dawn and dusk, and that's when the sun, technically, the magic hour is from 0 to about 20 degrees above horizon, which is what photographers live for, right? You want to be in the right place at magic hour, and isn't that what we make on stage is magic, right? So I'm totally in agreement with that. Color, right, is linked to brightness threshold. This is a little bit sciencey. So below a certain level of brightness, your eye cannot perceive variation in color. So at a certain level, everything is monochromatic, right? In dawn, at dusk in particular, which is the worst time to drive because there's no depth, right? They know there's more accidents at that hour. So if you want to see color, you have to be above a certain brightness threshold to stimulate that aspect of the eye. And if you want things to be monochromatic, even though you might have lots of color on stage, you lower that light level and you're not going to perceive the color. So I think your desire for color is linked to brightness. And I think Steve's point about the angle and the magic is key.
Well, the other idea behind the magic hour, if you look at it in television or in film, it is also defined as that time in which artificial light can overpower natural light. So go back and look. I mean, the people who really took it to a whole new level was the director of photography on Miami Vice. So much of that show was shot in twilight, either sunrise or sunset, but artificial light could overpower natural light. So you would see these scenes bathed in red or bathed in blue, but still natural light being the foundation of what they were doing.
And to support that, the cinematographers for Game of Thrones used mostly natural light. They used very little artificial light in that show, and they actually called it expressionistic naturalism because the actual natural angles of light created that amazing expressionistic angle and feeling of that show. So if you watch almost any scenes in Game of Thrones, it's being lit by maybe one or two light sources, but they're all natural. They use actual fire, they use actual moonlight.
So I want to read about that. Will you post that for us?
Absolutely. I have it because I actually teach a class in Game of Thrones, which is, pretty amazing. The lighting in that I think is absolutely amazing. But I am going to throw the proverbial turd into the oatmeal, gentlemen, because yes, everything you said is true. But what happens in the theater when you have some people in the audience sitting 20 feet away and some people in the audience sitting 100 feet away?
Good point.
Because, as we all know, the perception of light intensity changes the further away you get from it.
It gets to detail also. So, if you think about an eyeball, how big is an eyeball, right? From 60, I just know as the theater consultant guy, we have a sort of a magic number that 60 feet from, if you're beyond 60 feet from the stage, it's time for the opera glasses. Like you can't discern facial expressions, no matter how bright it is, because the details, it's too small.
So getting back, how bright is too bright? Is that for someone sitting 20 feet away or somebody sitting 100 feet away?
I'm still thinking about the eyeball and the turd in the oatmeal.
Turd in the oatmeal?
Really? I mean, how bright is too bright? All I know is that when I light a show, if I'm starting to squint, it's much too bright.
The problem you're finding, though, is it's that same problem that audio designers have.
Exactly.
Right.
And that is at what point do you have, for them, ear fatigue, and you're no longer hearing the high-end frequency. Or for us, we get eye fatigue, and we sit there. We've all done there. We've sat there in that balcony scene from Romeo and Juliet that takes probably, 10 or 15 minutes in real time, but we're in tech and we're 3 hours into it. And the director is saying, I can't see him, make it a little brighter, make it a little brighter. So, it's eye fatigue is a real thing.
It is.
So I don't know. That's 60 feet. That doesn't bother me too much.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, Steve, because a good way of getting rid of eye fatigue and to make things seem brighter is through contrast.
Right.
And I'm talking about contrast in atmospheres, where you may have an atmosphere that is maybe lit at 120 foot candles, and you may be sitting in that for 10 minutes, and then your next atmosphere is like the gymnasium scene in West Side Story, where it's super bright and super colorful, and you're at 250 foot candles, then okay, that's going to seem a lot brighter.
But
it's not going to seem like it's 300 foot candles because your eyes have adjusted for 10 minutes at 120 foot candles, right?
It's a good point.
You play with that type of contrast from scene to scene to scene, atmosphere to atmosphere, and then you have your transitions transition you into that new atmosphere in a way that makes it more powerful. So I think you can trick the eye. So I think the worst mistake you can make is when a director says, I can't see, make it brighter. And you make it brighter, and all that's what's going to happen is that your irises are going to shut down a little more. You're not going to be able to see the background. You're not going to see details because that's at a much lower light level. So you have to look at brightness in a way where it's a combination of intensity, modeling, angle, everything we've talked about, and movement from one scene to another, to another, to another, to another.
You hit a big one. I want to just emphasize it because what you're talking about with the adjustment period is called adaptation, and lighting really is, and Steve's talking about this as well, it's a time art also. How long is your exposure time under a certain condition? And understanding what the next condition is going to be and what the state of adaptation is. And in rehearsals, if you're not running in real time, you can't really judge the adaptation. Like Steve said, if you're watching that balcony scene for 45 minutes and you keep playing with it, and the scene only lasts 8 minutes, what you're seeing after 8 minutes is not what you're going to be seeing. So that the time adaptation, the time quotient is really important. I mean, IES really kind of lays this out in a lot of their documents. Like, for example, adapting to a movie theater. What's the light level outside? Then the lobby, then the area you traverse from the lobby to the theaters, then the hallway down to the theater, and then the light level in the movie theater, and how long they anticipate people spend in each zone to get them to adapt. And that's something that we neglect, frankly, and I'm not even sure we've got a really good way to teach it in the theater, but how to manage the adaptation factor.
Yeah. I think you have to see it to realize it. I mean, you have to be in the theater, you're writing cues, and you're watching it during a dress rehearsal.
That's right.
Yeah, and we need to take this atmosphere down at here. So I'm sorry to say that we really don't have an answer, Bobby. We don't know how bright is too bright. Well, speaking of intensity, Palmi Johnson in Iceland. Oh, by the way, Palmi is our first listener in Iceland. Isn't that fantastic?
Hey, wait
He's
a minute.
in Reykjavik.
This is really important to me because I have in one of my classes, my students are we're doing a course in facade lighting, and they're lighting this church in Reykjavik. They chose the project.
That's where he's from.
Okay, so I said to them, you need to get in touch with somebody in Iceland, and now we have somebody. So we have a contact on Palmi. I need to hook them up.
Hook him up.
Okay.
Because he writes, how do you light a show with an all-white set and a matte white floor?
Not too bright.
What are the tricks to pull out the actors' faces from the white background? Well, Palmi, I happen to have lit several all-white sets with white floors, and the one that comes in mind right away is a production of Lulu I did at the Lyric Opera of Chicago several years ago, where all the sets are white and the floor was white, and it's not as difficult as you may think. Because remember, you're talking about how do you pull out the actors' faces from a white background? Nothing pulls out an actor's face better than a white background. Because you have the color, because you're seeing the color of the flesh against a white background. And it's a contrast of color, and you just got to make sure that you light the walls like you would light the walls of any set. You light them and isolate them separately so you can tone them and you can play with the background intensity and the background color. Because white is not always white. You can turn white into a lot of different colors. So you can subtly make these changes depending on what you want the atmosphere to look like. So you can tone that white to more of a sepia type of look, or maybe a little green, or maybe a little blue, just real subtle shifts that will give you great contrast and great mood control. White is actually the ultimate color for you to paint the set with. I'm talking about the white set itself. You can paint it with any color, and you can either be really drastic, like I was in certain moments of Lulu. I mean, I think it was the last scene when Jack the Ripper murders her, where I had all the walls in this really stark blue color, but it was relatively saturated. But those walls were white. But this is what you could do. It's like a big projection screen. So treat it as such, as if there's a big projection screen behind you, and you can tone and balance it depending on what you light it with, color and intensity.
Josh in Iowa writes, I have 6 IQs. Lucky for you, Josh. One is not holding focus palettes. They are
only one?
That's what he says. They're all off by a foot or so. Is it a problem? It's a problem. Let me read that.
Yes, it's a problem.
They're all off by a foot or so. It's a problem. What can I do? I don't own any IQs. I think maybe we have one at the university, but and I did I did find some time to do a little research on this, and I was actually going to call Roscoe, but I didn't have time for that. But I found some things that different people have said, and I don't know which is right. So I heard a bunch of different things. I read a motor could be wearing out. I read it's usually on the tilt, not the pan. I read that if all the set screws are tight, it should be good. I read that you should use a terminator, perhaps. I read that some people were saying that if you unplug it from power, when you power it back home, back up, it should go to its natural home state and recalibrate. But then other people said that doesn't seem to fix it. Other people said, I've had mine plugged in for 6 years and I've never had a problem. So maybe it's worn out. Those are the sort of possibilities out there. Oh, and one other one was length of cable, right? Voltage drop from the power supply to the IQ could be a cause. But I don't know. Those are the ones that I dug up, but I cannot be authoritative on this one. Maybe my Lumen brothers have more direct knowledge.
Well, Josh, there's two things. Since you have 6 IQs, and one is not holding focus, this is a pretty easy solve. Take your pan motor and swap it with your tilt motor and see if you still have the problem. If you still have the problem, then take a look at your optical sensor. It's probably loose or dirty.
There you go. Yeah, I did read that one. Swap the motor and see if that's it. Yeah.
My only suggestion is use one of them and use the other 5 as backups.
That's cold, man. They sent you a mixed book, and you're still
I'm still
dissing.
anti-IQ. I'm dissing the IQ. I'm sorry.
I tell you what, I'm going to go out right now and buy an IQ. I'm going to go buy an IQ right now.
They still make them?
Yeah, they do.
Oh, hell yeah, they still make them.
They still make them.
Man, those things are fantastic.
Okay. We used 2 at school, and they always seem to have some issues, but that's all right.
How old are they?
I don't know, about 17 years, I think.
Have you ever cleaned them?
Well, we spray them down with water, every now and then.
Spray them down.
It's got dynamite grease all over them.
Hey, at least we spray them down.
You take care of that IQ, it'll take care of you.
Okay, that's good to know.
All right. Well, guess what? What? You're listening to Light Talk, and today Light Talk is sponsored by
Whamit Corporation's Insta-Theatre. Are you tired of staying home?
Yes.
Are you dying to get back to work?
I'm working, believe me.
Are you so lonely for the theater that you continually ask Alexa to take the lights to 50%?
Yes.
Well, we used to complain about the filthy environment that we worked in. Theaters filled with asbestos dust and smelly urine-soaked seats. Old squeaky doors and bathrooms that you would not send your worst enemy to. Tell me something. Are you still complaining? Well, in the state of pandemic paralysis, we have grown to appreciate that special place of the theater more than ever. But what can we do? Well, transform your living room to your own personal theatrical workspace with Insta-Theatre. That's right. Insta-Theatre will transform your living room into that smelly old dust-filled dump you used to call home. Insta-Theatre comes with crappy old theater seats, urine optional, a real production table, work lamps, monitors, a headset system that has continual cracking and feedback, an ETC Ion, and of course, a solar-powered garden gnome. Just insert the Insta-Theatre thumb drive into your computer and video system and choose a number of theatrical shows to light. The Insta-Theatre software will take command from the controller and light the virtual set and costumes right on your television set. But Insta-Theatre is much more than a theatrical recreation tool. Just choose any movie or television show from your streaming service and relight it in seconds. Tired of those old Turner movie classics that colorize black and white movies? Take it beyond reality and transform Humphrey Bogart into the Hulk. Or how about Citizen Kane in Technicolor? Or better yet, update Metropolis to 2020. Too close to reality? Welcome to our nightmare. Use our helpful virtual designer to make suggestions on how to light all those moments and transitions. Try our Mad Max mode to create atmospheres that Timothy Leary and Stanley Kubrick would fawn over. So why wait forever for a vaccine when you can start lighting shows now? Embrace your insanity and make good use of it with Insta-Theatre by Whamit Corporation.
And now, back to Light Talk.
Well, those crazy ducks tell us that it's time for another installment of Let's Talk About. And today's Let's Talk About comes from a letter we recently received from Alex in Cambridge. And he asks, what was the most difficult professional decision you had to make? And if you had another chance, would you have chosen differently? This is like a poser. I have an answer right away. I knew exactly what it was.
I have to say, I don't look backwards. I don't look back and I didn't make any weird decisions that were, earth shattering and destroyed my career. I just don't think about that stuff. I don't think about it. I don't ponder on it and go, if I'd done this, maybe that would happen.
I'm sort of with Steve on this. If I really do an assessment, the answer that comes up is no regrets.
No, I'm not talking about regrets. I think what our listener is asking is for some advice about making decisions like this, and not necessarily that you regret them, but how it may have changed your career for the better or for the worse.
Okay. I got one, but go ahead, David, since you have one.
Well, I mean, mine came right to mind. It was back in 1984, I believe it was, when Gilbert asked me to assist in New York, to come to New York. And I decided not to. And I decided not to because my career had started, and I actually did not want to be a New York designer. Nothing against New York designers. Okay, I love you all. Great. Thank God you're doing it, and thank God you're doing it. But I was not ready for that lifestyle. And I just made an honest decision that for me, living the lifestyle I was living was not going to be in New York. I wanted it to be elsewhere. I didn't want it to be even in a huge city. So I decided not to, and do regional theater and do regional opera and things like that. And a lot of people thought I was crazy. He says, these designers, they want to help you out. And I turned it down. I said, no, thank you very much. It was great. But I did not want to be a New York designer. And I don't regret that decision.
And that may have kept you from being a designer. You might have gone with Gil and all of a sudden been an assistant the rest of your life.
That's true.
Now I was a terrible assistant. Yeah. I would have ended up working in a restaurant.
You might have been a musician. You might have been a professional musician, which you sort of are.
I wasn't ready for that, and not in that environment. I'm just not a New York person, and I had to come to terms with that, because if you go to New York, that's a commitment. That's a huge commitment, and you got to give it at least 10, 12 years. And if things aren't looking up, then you got to move on, I think.
So I have a contrast. I'm a New Yorker, so I was already there. And I had the same response as you in a way, but in the opposite direction. I didn't want to be in New York. I couldn't wait to get out of New York. It was a really hard place to live. And I'm thinking about like a decision, like I didn't even think about this till you asked it, really. And I thought, so people kept saying to me, why don't you go to Yale? And I was like, I don't think I want to. And they were like, well, why not? That's like the best school to go to. And you're here and you're in New York. And my aunt was a graduate of Yale. So I sort of had that kind of help. Back in those days, that helped if someone in your family had gone to the institution. And it was expensive. And I didn't have the money. And so even if I could have so I didn't go there, right? And I went completely to the other side of the country, right, for my graduate education. But I think the most difficult, I just think I nailed it. The most difficult decision for me was to leave New York, the center of professional theater in the United States, and to go all the way to Honolulu, right? 6,000 miles away from everyone and everything I knew, and get on a 747 with one suitcase, right? Really, and $1,000 in the bank, and that's all I had, and an assistantship. And my family thought I was nuts, but I just chucked everything, and I didn't look back. I actually was looking forward. I think what Steve says is really good, because I think I'm kind of the same way. But that was a difficult decision, to just give up on everything. Left my car, left my parents were not thrilled. My friends were like, are you crazy? But I did it, and it worked out for me, and I'm glad I did. It changed my life. It didn't necessarily change my professional career, but it changed how I viewed the world. It opened me up. New York, believe it or not, New York is surprisingly not, what's the word I'm looking for? Provincial. No, it is provincial. New York, it's like that New Yorker cover. There's the picture of New York City, the Hudson River, New Jersey, and then a cornfield in California, and there's nothing in between, right? New York, I had friends growing up in Brooklyn who had never gone across the river into Manhattan. Now, I certainly did, because my family was very sort of culturally engaged. But New Yorkers can be provincial. And so for me, moving all the way to the middle of the Pacific opened me up in a way that nothing else could have, I don't think. And it was difficult to do that, but I was also excited at the same time, and it worked out well.
Well, first of all, before I button this up, it's funny, Stan, that you said that your decision about Yale, right? I wanted to go to Yale, but I was told by Theron Musser not to go to Yale. And it's because, not that Theron didn't believe in Yale, because she did, but she knew I was a musician and that I was composing, and I wanted to keep composing while I studied lighting. And she had a better school for me to go to, and that was SMU, because Bill and Jane Eckhart embraced that. They embraced the idea of designers also being musicians, and would allow me to continue to compose. So that was it. Yeah, so I didn't go to Yale because Theron told me not to. And who's not going to listen to her, for God's sake?
And no one told me not to. People actually were encouraging me to do so. Yeah.
So I think the best answer is that it's not just about your career, and it's not really about what you think your future is, because we really don't know what our futures are. But it's also about understanding and being self-aware of what your needs are as a human being, and what makes you happy. And when it came down to it, I had to sit down and say, am I going to be happy in New York? Or would I be happy, being based in a place like Miami or Atlanta or wherever, right? Or Dallas. I just decided that I was not going to have enough happiness to be able to deal with that, and I was not ready for it. So I think that's really the best way of making these decisions, is not just think about the career, but think about what your inner happiness needs to be.
Can I just add to your button?
Sure.
I think that's beautifully said, David. And for me, Honolulu, we're talking about about paradise, and it was so good for my soul and so good for my spirit, and it took the New York edge off me, and it told me that life doesn't have to be tense and aggressive and burdensome. It can be beautiful. Life can be beautiful, and it really sat with my soul beautifully.
Well, you obviously made the right decision, and I think so. I obviously made one too. So Steve has our last question.
Dave in Louisiana asks, how do you label truss so your load-in goes fast? All right, so this is easy. Truss ends, right? Your truss end always gets a direction. So stage right, stage left, downstage, upstage. And then the truss joints get a number. So on one end of your first truss that comes on stage, you're going to start down right. The offstage edge gets a 1, the onstage edge gets a 2. The next piece of downstage truss will have a 2 and a 3 on it. So 2 to 2. Then the next piece, which is probably around center line, will have a 3 and a 4. So 3 to 3. So you line your numbers up. If you are number challenged, you can do it with tape. So you have a truss, and it's let's say just 2 truss system, but it scales up. Your downstage truss is blue. Off stage is one blue stripe. On stage is 2 blue stripes. The next truss comes on, 2 blue stripes, 3 blue stripes. And so if you're consistent, the stagehands are not dummies. Once you show them 1 or 2 sections of truss, they can figure everything out. And it depends, if you're careful as you pack your truck, then things come off the truck in a way that you don't have random pieces of truss sitting on stage with no home to go to until 20 minutes later when the next piece comes out of the nose of the truck.
Yeah. What if you're colorblind?
Numbers.
What if you're colorblind and number challenged?
I would take maybe a punch, and I would punch holes in my truss so I could do it like Braille.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, Braille. That's good for the blind stage.
Really.
What if you have no hands? You have no fingers.
Tongue. I'd use a tongue.
You can do it by smell.
So Dave,
how about by smell?
Really, what you're asking here is, should you be organized? And yes, you should be organized. It's once you get to the load in or you get to tech, you don't want to be doing mindless stuff that you could have done weeks in advance.
Because you'll be cursing yourself at that time.
Oh, what Dave could do is he could tape crawfish on. One crawfish,
2 crawfish, 3 crawfish.
We love crawfish.
Yes.
different species of fish.
Yeah, shrimp.
You have starfish, shrimp,
scallop,
right.
starfish. Yeah.
And then at the end of the
Jellyfish.
tour, you can have a big crawfish boil.
There we go. I like it.
Or gefilte fish. You can have like numbers of
gefilte
gefilte
fish. Yeah, with some
There you
sauce,
go.
with some good cocktail sauce.
No, it's a good jelly that goes around
Tartar
it.
sauce.
Well, the rocking sounds of the Luminoids tells us that once again you've spent another morning listening to Light Talk.
We're hungry.
You can, where's my gefilte fish? You can hear our show on Spotify, iTunes, Google, YouTube, Live Design Online, and just about every podcast site out there. And be sure to check out our website on lighttalk.org for future guests, and also follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our podcast. That way you will not miss a second of Light Talk insanity.
No guarantee is offered regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast. However,
If you decide to litigate, the law firm of Fleck, Flock, Flair, and Glare and their paralegal snoots will defend us until our retirement funds are depleted.
Light Talk is written and produced by the Lumen Brothers, coming to you from Long Beach, Gainesville, and the Republic of Texas.
And be sure to join us next week when we talk to lighting designer Adam Honore.
He's eating some crawfish.
Yes, he likes crawfish.
That's true. He probably knows how to cook it pretty well,
That's
too.
right.
All of that and a new sponsor.
Light Talk, broadcasting questionable Lumen knowledge and humor around the world.
So we'll see you all next Saturday morning. Bye-bye from Light Talk.
So long, everybody.
Toodles.